134, State versus Daylon Richardson. Mr. Richardson was convicted of 2 counts of murder. The jury also found that Nicholas Weist was a peace officer killed in the course of performing his official duties, and that Mr. Richardson knew or reasonably should have known that Nicholas Weist was a peace officer. Found that was proven. We're here today for purposes of a sentencing. We have some motions first. Mr. Carmen, do you wish to present evidence and or to make any further arguments regarding your objection to the mandatory sentence and your supplemental objection to the mandatory sentence, sir?
Yes, Your Honor. The court is familiar with my basic position that under the facts of this case and with regard to this defendant, the mandatory natural life imprisonment is a violation of both the Illinois and United States Constitutions. The Illinois Constitution's proportionate penalties clause and the cruel and unusual punishment aspect of the Eighth Amendment. For today's purposes, we had a miniature pre-trial conference the other day in which the court heard my objections, but I think it's important that I make them for the record as this case moves forward. Of course, I'm referring to the Illinois Supreme Court's decision in June in People v. Spencer, where it suggested that a proportionate penalties clause should be brought as part of a post-conviction petition challenging the constitutionality of the sentence. My position on that is that post-conviction petition is not the exclusive remedy for that given the specific facts of this case, where the sentence of the defendant is mandated by both statute and the findings of the jury, and the fact that we have the evaluation report from Dr. Stapleton, which certainly lays the foundation for contention that either of the proportionate penalties clause or the Eighth Amendment, that those are unconstitutional under these specific circumstances. I know the court has ruled that Spencer meant what it said, and my response to that was Spencer came up in the factual context of that case, which did not have these very important facts about what the jury found and what the law provides. I think the concern of the Spencer court was that a record be made, that the court would review in terms of the facts related to a particular defendant, and I think we have all of those elements already present. We should be doing that as part of the sentencing hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carmen. Ms. Runke, does the state wish to present evidence and or make any further argument response to Mr. Carmen's objection?
Your Honor, the state continues to object to an ongoing discussion regarding the Miller case law. Would note that in People v. Spencer, the site is 2025 IL 130015. The court specifically noted that the Miller line of case law only applies to juveniles, not to emerging adults, which is what this defendant would qualify as, and that I feel it's absolutely appropriate for this court to continue with the sentencing today with the guidelines in place by statute.
So if I read and I understand the defendant's motion correctly, Mr. Richardson is essentially contending that the mandatory natural life imprisonment term allegedly violates the Eighth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and the proportionate penalties clause of the Illinois Constitution as applied to him, because he was at the time of the offense, says a quote-unquote youth, and the court is not allowed to consider his youth or emerging adulthood or any possible intellectual disability at The U.S. Supreme Court has addressed several matters involving youthful offenders. I reviewed Roper versus Simmons, 543 U.S. 551, as well as Graham versus Florida, 560 U.S. 48, as well as Miller versus Alabama, 132 Supreme Court 2455, and then the recent decision handed down in People versus Spencer. In the Roper and Graham holdings, the court has found that the Eighth Amendment prohibits the death penalty for juveniles and categorically precludes the imposition of a natural life sentence for juveniles who commit crimes other than homicides. The court has gone so far as to opine that a natural life imprisonment term without the possibility of parole imposed on a juvenile for murder violates the Eighth Amendment. These cases are premised on the characteristics of youth that make juvenile defendants less morally culpable and have a higher likelihood than adults to be rehabilitated. The court, however, has limited its holdings to defendants who are under the age of 18 when they committed their offenses, reasoning that the line must be drawn somewhere. Further, our Supreme Court has expressly stated that Miller does not provide cause for a juvenile offender to raise a claim under the proportionate penalties clause, as Miller does not directly apply to young adults. This court is not aware what the definition of a young adult is, as most humans are considered an adult at 18 years of age and have the brain capacity to knowingly marry, sign up for the military, to vote, legally register for a firearm, and at the age of 21 to legally imbibe alcoholic beverages. In this case, Mr. Richardson was 22 years of age at the time of these offenses. The jury rendered its verdicts of guilty and made a factual finding that Nicholas Weist was a police officer and that he was killed in the course of performing his official duties. I am bound by the sentencing statute to that, and the objection, Mr. Carmen, that you have made, and the objections will stand on the record and be preserved for purposes of any future appeals. We will proceed with sentencing. Ms. Runty, have you received and reviewed a copy of the pre-sentence investigation report?
I have.
Do you wish to make any corrections, additions to that report?
And no corrections or additions from the state.
Thank you. Mr. Carmen, have you received and reviewed the pre-sentence investigation report?
I have.
You reviewed that with your client?
I am not.
Do you wish to take some time to review with him?
Based upon the court's most recent comments and the law as it stands, what's in the pre-sentence investigation is not going to affect this court's sentence. So I'm not going to, consistent with my position throughout, I'm not going to go over that.
Ms. Runty, do you wish to present any evidence in aggravation?
Your Honor, I have no evidence in aggravation. The state does have victim witness statements at the time that the court feels it's appropriate.
Mr. Carmen, any evidence in mitigation?
Mr. Richardson will make an unsworn statement as well as me.
So Mr. Richardson is choosing to make a statement in allocution.
That's correct.
Do you wish his mother to make the statement first or himself?
I would like his mother to speak first.
Okay, I don't know who his mother is.
I'm sorry. Tiffany?
If you would make the microphone over to her.
Your Honor, I stand here today as a mother whose son is facing the rest of his life in prison for an accident that had devastating consequences. First and foremost, I want to recognize the life that was lost. An officer who served his community is gone, and I cannot begin to imagine the depth of sorrow his family feels. I extend my deepest sympathy and respect to them. But I also ask you to see the fuller picture of my son's life and how his past shaped the tragic events that day. Where you at? The fuller picture of my son's life? Yeah. Okay. And how his past shaped the tragic events that day. From the time he was very young, my son was bullied and singled out because he was born with one ear. He carried that pain throughout his childhood, constantly mocked, excluded, and made to feel less than. As he grew older, he also experienced harassment from members of his local police department. This left him living in fear of those who should protect him. On the day of the incident, my son was not acting out of malice or intent to harm anyone. He was acting out of fear. He ran because he was scared, terrified, and in that panic, tragedy struck. The officer's death was not something he ever intended, and it is something he will regret for the rest of his life. Your Honor, my son is not beyond saving. He is a young man who has endured trauma and isolation, but who still has a good heart and the capacity to grow. A life sentence without hope denies him the chance to heal, to change, and to one day give back in a way that honors the life lost. I ask for mercy, not to erase the harm that was done, but to allow room for rehabilitation. My son can still find purpose in counseling others, working to prevent young people from making the same mistakes, and showing that redemption is possible even after great tragedy. Justice should not only punish, but also restore. I beg you to grant him a chance at a future where he could become more than the worst moment of his life. Thank you for hearing my words.
Thank you. Mr. Richardson, at this time you are welcome to make a statement in allocution. Don't have to, but if you wish to do so, sir, then now's the time.
I would like to start by taking responsibility for my actions, by taking accountability for what happened on April 29th, 2022. I sincerely apologize to Nicholas Weist and his family. I also want to let everyone know that what happened was a terrible car accident, and it was never my intention to hurt or harm anyone that day. I was only trying to get away due to my fear of law enforcement in my past. I've been harassed and assaulted by police officers. I'd like for Nicholas Weist's wife and family to forgive me. I now am going to offer a prayer on Mr. Weist and my behalf. Father God, I come to you in prayer in regards of Nicholas Weist. I ask that you receive Nicholas Weist's spirit and ask that his family and friends receive his as a guardian angel. Father, I specifically pray for his wife and children and ask that you guide them and that you comfort them as they deal with the loss of their husband and father. I ask that you forgive me for my sins as I forgive those who have sinned against me. I ask that you cleanse my heart and my conscience as I will forever remember Nicholas Weist. Please, Lord, be here for us all. In Jesus' name, amen. Third, I want to apologize to Judge Norman for my behavior after the jury found me guilty. I knew that I could be going to prison for the rest of my life, and I was very bitter and angry. Never have I hid from accountability these last 3 years. I pushed this case to trial because I didn't want to be labeled as a murderer because I am not one. Once again, I apologize for my actions, and if I could rewind that day, I would have just pulled over. Finally, I want to apologize to my parents and the rest of my family. Please know that I love you, and I am sorry you had to go through all of this. Thank you for listening, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. At this time, anything else, Mr.
No.
Ms. Drunky? I believe you have some
Honorable Judge Kozlarich, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to the court today. My name is Jessica Weist, and I am Deputy Nick Weist's widow. I've spent years thinking about what I would say if given the opportunity to speak today, but when it came time to write the statement, it proved to be challenging. My life looks nothing like it did 3.5 years ago. My family has endured endless pain and trauma at the hands of Mr. Richardson. We have had to learn how to live with one of the most important people, live without one of the most important people in our lives. I wish I could say that time has healed our wounds, but our journey to healing is one that has just begun. Nick was one of the best men I've ever known. He was my husband, he was my best friend. He was easy to talk to, he was kind and thoughtful. He was my biggest supporter, even encouraging me to finish my schooling when we met. He was always patient and slow to anger. He could use his words and humor to diffuse almost any situation. He was friendly with everyone and would even make small talk with strangers. Nick was a wonderful father. He was active and involved in our children's lives and activities, attending school functions and sporting events. He and I were a team. We intentionally worked different shifts. We took different days off, so there was always one of us available for our kids. This sometimes meant we only saw each other in passing, but we told ourselves it was okay. We had the rest of our lives to spend together. We would spend hours talking about all the places we wanted to visit and where we would live when he retired and we were done raising our family. All of our dreams and plans are gone. Not only did Mr. Richardson kill my husband, he stole the future and the life I had planned with him. Nick was my person. I don't think there will ever be another person for me. And the idea of the future alone is scary. For quite a while after Nick's murder, I struggled with insomnia. Closing my eyes meant reliving all of the worry and the anxiety from the day he was killed. Nick never wanted me to worry. In the mornings, if he was ever running late, he would send me a quick text. Sometimes just one word, late. When I had not heard from him by 8:45, I sent a text to check in. I spent the next hour calling and texting him, all of my messages showing delivered, but still unread on his phone. I began to panic. One of the things I love most about Nick is he was always dependable. It was at that point that I knew something was wrong, and I called the sheriff's office. Still holding on to the hope that maybe they would tell me Nick was being treated for a minor injury and would be home soon. The conversation is a blur, but the words, "I'm sorry, he is deceased," confirmed my worst fears and made me physically ill. How could he be dead? I was in shock. I remember asking, "Can I see him?" I don't think I would have overcome my denial if I had not viewed his body at the funeral home later that night. Seeing him lying there in a hospital gown, covered in a sheet, is now an image I must live with for the rest of my life. Telling our kids the news was the hardest conversation I've ever had to have. Knowing the message that I was going to have to deliver would devastate them. And from that moment on, their lives would never be the same. I feel like I destroyed their innocence. And at 9 and 12, they now knew the harsh reality that not everyone is a good person. And there is evil in this world. After the events of April 29th, I suffered from extreme anxiety. At times it felt suffocating, to the point that I could barely let the kids out of my sight.
I still remember the first day Ava forgot to text me when she got on the bus home from school. All of the memories and the emotions of April 29th came flooding back. And I made a frantic call to the bus administration office to confirm she had indeed boarded the bus. It was at that point that I knew it would take more than my strength and more than my willpower to heal from the trauma caused by Mr. Richardson. I began taking medication and seeing a therapist. The kids and I have spent hundreds of hours, thousands of dollars on therapy, and some days it still doesn't feel like enough. On the bad days, this grief is still overwhelming and the tears still come. The kids have kept me going the past 3 years. I have tried to focus all of my time and energy on raising them. We talk about Nick daily, and I make sure they know how much he loved them. Nick should be here. He should be here to celebrate baseball championships and first place wins at dance nationals and all the little things in between. The list of milestones and memories without him goes on and will forever. Every good thing that happens in their lives will be overcast with grief because their dad is not here to share in the joy with them. It is hard for me to see my kids in pain. I want to fix it and I want to take it all away. But this is a deep emotional wound that impacts every aspect of their lives. They worry more and trust less. They've built walls around their hearts to protect themselves from hurt and disappointment. Parenting them through grief is not easy. I sometimes don't know what to do other than to hold them and cry with them. I've been forced to be a single mother. The responsibility of raising 2 children on my own is daunting. There is no one to share the load or help make decisions. No one to help care for the home or help take the kids to their activities. There is just me. I think about the morning of April 29th a lot, and I am plagued with questions. Questions I will never know the answers to. Did Nick understand what was happening? And in that moment, was he scared? What were his last thoughts? Was he thinking of us? Of the kids? Or was he thinking of his sense of duty? The thoughts of what he endured in the last seconds of his life is unbearable. Mr. Richardson has sat in this courtroom many times over the last 3.5 years, and not once has he shown an ounce of remorse outside of this morning. No apologies for the lasting trauma and pain that he has caused me and my children. I don't know how someone can be so callous and uncaring. The anger I feel for him is sometimes all-consuming. I feel robbed of my last moments with Nick. I never got to say goodbye. I never got to tell him how much he meant to me. That those were moments I can never get back. I am now forced to live with those regrets for the things I never said. I miss Nick more than words can express. What I wouldn't give for one more family bike ride around town, or family dinner at the kitchen table. We used to do everything together, just the 4 of us. And now there's a huge hole in our family. Our lives will never be the same. In my heart, I know Nick saved lives that morning. He knew the risks of the job, and he was willing to make the ultimate sacrifice to protect our community and to take a dangerous criminal off the streets. I'm so proud of him. Mr. Richardson is a danger to society. And my plea to the court today is to ensure he is never able to harm another person or destroy another family as long as he lives. Thank you.
Thank you.
Honorable Judge, my name is Weist and I'm Nick's son. My dad was an amazing person. He would help me whenever I needed help. Even if I didn't want help right then and there, he would always be ready to help when I needed it. School has become hard and I sometimes need help with my homework. My mom tries her best to help, but she gets busy a lot. My dad would always try his best to help me, and I appreciated it greatly. I wish I could tell him how grateful I was. My dad was amazing. He didn't yell at me whenever I did something wrong. He would get mad at first, but then he would calm down and sit with me and talk. Sometimes he would talk about what was bothering me, and other times we would just talk about boy stuff. But no matter what we talked about, he would always make me feel better. My dad was my best friend. We did almost everything together. We biked, fished, played video games, and practiced sports together. We got a little annoyed with each other sometimes, but we would always make up and end up making great memories. I think back to April 29th, that day began like any other. I was sitting in the lunchroom with my friends when the principal came to get me. She said there was a family emergency, and that at the time I didn't know what she meant by that. Then I saw my papa Bill there waiting to pick me up. When I got back to my house with the cars in the driveway and my mom wrapped in a blanket crying, I knew in that moment something had happened to my dad. The second my mom's words hit my ear, I nearly fell. The words, "Dad had died," forever imprinted in my mind, unwavering and unchanging. My dad has missed out on so many things: birthdays, sports, cross-country meets, etc. He will miss my first girlfriend, my first date, and someday my wedding. My wife and children will never get to meet him. They will only get to hear stories about how great he was. My dad and I loved to go biking. We would go weekly, whether it was around our neighborhood or an hour away. I was 7 when my dad took me on my first bike trail. I thought it was so fun. My dad was thrilled that I loved biking as much as him, because now he could ride bikes with someone, not just by himself. If I could do one more thing with my dad, it would be to go mountain biking with him. I still go biking sometimes, but not as much as I would like. My dad was an amazing chef, and I regret not taking the opportunity to cook with him. I would give anything to get a chance to cook with him now and to get to experience his food one more time. I remember my dad and I were having a boys' night when he showed me a movie called Guardians of the Galaxy. After we watched it, we were hooked. Together, we explored the world of Marvel movies. It was amazing. It became our everything. Every time we would have a boys' night, we would watch a Marvel movie. Our favorite was Guardians of the Galaxy 2. We would always joke that my dad was a character called Drax because he was bald and funny, and I was a character called Groot because I was small and silly. My dad and I had a special bond with Marvel. When I watch Marvel movies now, I think of my dad. Good things like fond memories, and bad things like how we will never be able to see another movie together. My dad was funny and spontaneous. He would randomly surprise me and my sister with little things like treats or gifts, or randomly stopping by to say I love you. He always made sure we knew we were loved. My dad has been the biggest influence in my life. I always miss my dad, but on the days I miss him the most, I put on my headphones and listen to my dad's music. I can't explain what happens, but when I do, there is just this sense of calm and relaxation, and it's like I can feel my dad sitting next to me telling me everything is okay. Sometimes I have questions that go through my mind. Is my dad proud of me? What does he think of me? And will I get to see him again? When I lost my dad, it was not just like losing him. It was like losing my best friend. The person I could always count on, and the only person I felt understood me and my struggles. Ever since I lost my dad, I've had trouble making friends. I feel like I could never have another best friend as good as him. I've had a hard time getting close to people because I'm scared I'll lose them too. There's so much more I could say, but I'm going to wrap it up by saying my dad was amazing, brave, funny, smart, and caring. He was everything you could ever want in a father, and someday I hope to be as good a father as him. I truly did learn from the best. Thank you.
Honorable Judge, my name is Daylon, and Deputy Weist is my name. It took me a really long time to figure out what I wanted to say. I was pouring my heart out on a piece of paper just for this moment right now. I was scared that I would be judged or even looked at though. It was really hard for me to be honest because I'm having a hard time being honest with myself. In 3.5 years, the void of losing my dad still feels really big. In 3.5 years, the void of losing my dad still feels big, and I'm not sure if it can give me closure, whether it's sitting in front of the courtroom today or doing things my dad loved. But the loss still hurts, and I'm just looking for anything to make it better. Nothing could have prepared me for what happened on April 29th. No 12-year-old should hear that their dad left for work and isn't coming home. I would have given anything for a last "I love you, princess" and a hug of love. But that, along with my innocence, was stolen from me. The night before my dad was killed, I went straight to bed without saying goodnight, and I did. Because of the defendant, I will never get the chance to say that to him again. Sometimes I miss my dad so much, I wish I could dream about him, even if they're bad dreams, just so I could see him again. No one truly knows how much losing someone in your life changes you. Losing my dad on April 29th, I was forced to leave my childhood behind and step into a real world. A real world where nothing can protect you anymore, where life isn't fair, and where when you fall into great grief, no one is there to keep you awake. After something so tragic, only be the right of the person they were with. Grief changes me in ways you can't imagine. I would have given anything for one last pretty princess in my hands one more time. I often wonder if my dad would be proud of the person I am today, and because of Mr. Richardson's careless actions, I will never know. Every day, I feel the weight of being a reflection of my dad. Even on the bad days, I feel like I need to keep my head held high and put my best foot forward. It feels like I have to be the best version of myself. It feels like the never-ending pressure to help my dad's memory live on. When I think about the morning my dad was killed, I was pulled out of class early and got pulled out to work home, my stomach twisting into knots. I got home and I immediately saw people in my front yard. I could tell I was being distracted, but I didn't know why. And in that moment, and in my innocence, I remember asking, "Where's Dad's squad car?" And with no response, I followed it up with, "It's okay, I'm sure he'll be home soon." I didn't even know something like this could happen, let alone happen to our family. Because of the tragic events on April 29th, I'm forever scarred. Y'all. Heavy trauma that not only affects me, but also my family, the officers, dad almost every day at concert besides Thursday night. Sometimes even comes home from work to sleep a couple of hours and then getting up to go to activities or pick us up from school. My dad and I had so many new dreams. We wanted to travel abroad someday to try new foods and maybe open our own food trucks. We wanted to go to Germany when I was old enough and have a drink. My dad and I love to cook. He passed his love for cooking on to me. He introduced me to lots of different cuisines. One of my favorite foods my dad introduced me to is sushi. My dad and I love to try spicy foods together. It was our thing. He was always looking for new food challenges for us to try. Cooking was such a big part of our lives. Looking back, I wish I could have taken advantage of cooking with my dad, but how was 12-year-old me supposed to know that such a big part of my life was going to be stolen from me? After losing my dad, I had a lot of anxiety and I fell into depression. As much as I didn't friendship ever. Bury their child. In a sense, not only was my brother taken that day, but so were my parents. They will never be saved. My children lost their uncle that day, the most loving and fun uncle. He had an incredibly special bond with my daughter. He adored her in her existence, and she ate it up. My son thankfully has many memories and pictures of him fishing with his uncle and grandpa to always remember who Nick was to him. My sister-in-law lost her husband, her best friend, her soulmate, and her forever. They made the best team together.
Nick is no longer here to advocate for himself. It is now our family's privilege to advocate for him. The world lost a hero that day and gained a murderer. Judge, I pray the decision for justice today, Your Honor, is a reflection of the devastation caused. I pray it bears the blatant disrespect for human life the defendant had that day. I pray it echoes with the lack of remorse that has been seen in every court hearing for over 3 years. And I pray that justice is not only seen, but the magnitude of it is felt as much as the magnitude of Nick's sense of losses.
Thank you, Judge, and the court, for allowing me the opportunity to speak about my son, Nick, and how the murder of my son has impacted my life and my family's life. Through trial, the person who Nick was, as a Knox County Deputy Sheriff, was spoken about in detail. The judge and the court learned about the integrity of his actions, the appropriateness of his actions, and the necessity of his actions to spare the lives of children who were starting their school day. Today, I want to speak about who Nick was as a son, as a husband, as a father, as a brother, and as an uncle. April 29th, 2022, the day Nick, my son, died. Shock, horror, disbelief, screaming, wailing, inability to stand are just a few descriptive words as to my emotional despair. When my husband came to my work to deliver the news, my son was dead. The trauma caused by Mr. Richardson's actions has profoundly altered our family's daily lives in my ability to find peace. Profound grief, the product of that trauma, is now so entrenched within my heart and my soul that each moment I wake up, I must meet it with a choice. How do I get through the next me down into a deep and unrecoverable despair. Mr. Richardson chose to put himself above the law. The resulting clause in his decision is why he was found guilty of murder of a peace officer. Yes, Nick was a peace officer. He was also a son, a husband, a father, a brother, an uncle. He was a man of integrity, both on duty as a police officer and off duty. Today, I want to express the deep pain and the devastating impact his actions caused our family. Mr. Richardson stole from our family in days and years we should have had with Nick. His actions stole my son from me, a husband from his wife, a father from his children, a brother from his sister, and an uncle from his niece and nephew. He stole from Nick the opportunity to watch his babies grow up and to have input into their life decisions and their life choices. My grandson, at 9 years old, said to me after his dad died, "Nana, there were things that my dad would do that bugged me, and it would make me mad." He then said something so profound. No 9-year-old should ever have the concept to say, "I wish he were here so I could do it." Mr. Richardson stole from my grandchildren their innocence. Judge, as grief interrupts my thoughts daily, I must decide how much more I'm going to let Mr. Richardson steal from me. Mr. Richardson, I loathe the day your inability to obey the law crossed paths with my son, who took an oath to uphold the law and to serve and to protect. There are days when my anger feels overwhelming, and I try and I struggle to reconcile the pain you caused with the forgiveness I know I am called to offer. Stepping outside my flesh, my hope is that someday you find some semblance of remorse for your actions. I pray God reveals a pathway to you, so you will see your choice took the life of my son. You ask God to forgive you, and you have a personal relationship with God as your Savior and as your Comforter. As a Christian, I am called to forgive. Today in this courtroom, I am not publicly able to declare to you that forgiveness, as that is a personal conversation between God and myself. Judge, I am not confident the sobs and the tears will ever end. I do know through continued professional counseling, I will learn how to cope with the waves of emotions into my heart. My biggest heartache is knowing I will never receive another text or another phone call from my son telling me he was just reaching out to tell me his mom up there, he loves me. There will never be another birthday, another Christmas with him. There will always be an empty seat at our table, and there will always be an ache in my heart due to missing Nick. As of April 29, 2022, I am a mama who has experienced the death of my child. A child I carried in my body for 9 months, nursed, nurtured, and watched grow into an incredible man of honor and integrity. For that, I am deeply grateful to have been his mama. The death of a child is an experience no parent should ever have to endure. As Nick's mama bear, I should never have had to say my last goodbye to him while he was laying in his coffin. The ache and anguish of losing my son have deeply impacted every aspect of my life. I will never be who I was prior to Mr. Richardson coming into our lives, uninvited and unwelcomed. I continually need to make daily choices how to journey through profound grief. It is a journey that will exist until God takes me home and I see my son again. Your Honor, I ask you to help me with this family in our journey of healing by imposing a natural life sentence without possibility of parole on Mr. Richardson. Thank you for this opportunity.
Nick's father, Kevin, has asked me to read his statement. Honorable Judge Norma Koslovich, thank you for your patience and strength in presiding over a trial that centered on a violent crime. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak, and thank you to the many others who have spoken. A senseless act of violence inflicted fatal wounds on Nick Weist, a Knox County Sheriff's Deputy, as he was deploying stop sticks on April 29th of 2022. I'd ask for a moment of silence for fallen officer Nicholas Donald Weist, 936. Forever his memory will be a reminder and a bright light of the true meaning of courage strength, service, sacrifice, and as a hero protecting his community. Nicholas was more than just a police officer. He was my son. I love my son, and I miss him very much, and I know I always will. Somehow, some way, my son had his life together, and I am very proud of him. Nicholas was a kind person who was smart and made many lives much more enjoyable. He graduated from Western with a criminal justice degree, had jobs in security, corrections, as a police officer in Aledo. Next, the Sheriff's Department for Knox County in 2018, until his end of watch at the age of only 34. Nick will be in the hearts of many forever as a hero. My son is a great husband and father of 2 children. He enjoyed spending time with his family. Often he was out fishing, using his boat, or at a local pond with his wife and children. The entire family loved riding bikes together, from casual rides around town, local trails and bike paths, enjoying the outdoors and getting exercise. Hunting was huge for him as well, along with grilling or using his smokers to help with making dinner. Nick loved date night with his wife. He loved throwing a ball with his 2 children and just being outside relaxing. My emotional suffering includes the extreme trauma forced on Nick's wife and now widow, seeing her in tears as she misses her best friend. Seeing Nick's firstborn, who also loved fishing with Dad, loved riding bikes all over town, move on without Dad. Also includes his secondborn, who loved soccer and practicing with his dad, loved trail riding and trail jumping. Again, moving forward without his dad. My son had many things in life he enjoyed and loved to do, including helping others, being active in his community. Nick loved his job as a police officer, and he loved being a sheriff's deputy for Knox County. The amount of pain and heartache, tears and anguish are beyond belief. Even after 3 years, my doctor has me on 2 blood pressure medicines. The anger, rage, and pain I feel is still overwhelming, and it continues to this day. At night, I can find my thoughts not shutting down over a memory that may last hours or days. A senseless act of violence made with no regard for human life, for others. An extreme act inflicting fatal wounds. Your Honor, my understanding is that the law was designed to punish those who are the worst of the worst. Individuals with prior records who repeat violent crimes, terrorize with guns, and those that drive recklessly at dangerous, life-threatening speeds. Respectfully, Kevin Weist, father of Knox County Deputy Sheriff 936, Nicholas Weist.
Grunty, is usually appointed at the sentencing hearing where I ask the state for sentencing recommendations. I don't know to what point you would like to go, or Mr. Carmen, because as I have ad nauseum stated to both of you, I am bound by the statute in the state of Illinois of the term of imprisonment. So if you feel the urge to argue this one, I will allow that as long as Mr. Carmen.
Not argument per se, Your Honor, as I understand the court's situation. I would like to just make sure that everything on my checklist, so to speak, is addressed, if I may. As the court has noted, the defendant has been found guilty of both counts of murder and has pled guilty to unlawful possession of a weapon by a felon and aggravated fleeing and eluding. The applicable sentencing statute is 730 ILCS 5/5-8-1C3. This court has had the opportunity to see and hear all of the evidence during the trial and listen to the statements read today, learning about Deputy Weist, his life, his service, and his death. I was at the scene on April 29th, and as I have walked through this case and spoken with Nick's family, I'm not sure there are words to adequately convey to this court the complete wreckage left behind by this defendant's actions. I've pieced together a picture of who Nick was, the son who actually texted his mother, the husband who created a true partnership with his wife, the father who knew to take time for the little things, and the police officer who put his community above all else. The state does ask the court, in compliance with the statute, to sentence the defendant to a natural life sentence in the Illinois Department of Corrections without the possibility of parole on count 1. I would note it is my belief that count 2 would merge. We further ask the court to sentence the defendant to 10 years in the Illinois Department of Corrections, followed by 6 months mandatory supervised release on the unlawful possession of weapon by a felon charge, which would be served concurrent with the sentence in count 1. We finally ask the court to sentence the defendant to 6 years in the Illinois Department of Corrections on the charge of aggravated fleeing and eluding, to be served concurrent with the sentence in count 1. We ask the court to impose the required fines and assessments, and note that the defendant has credit to cover the fine and would qualify for a waiver of the assessments, leading to no balance owed. Thank you.
Mr. Carmen.
Thank you, Your Honor. My client sits next to me in handcuffs, but he's not the only one in this courtroom who's wearing handcuffs. I would say, Your Honor, that you are wearing handcuffs too, put on you by the legislature, which is determined what my client's sentence will be. I wear the handcuffs myself because I can only make my comments for the record, and I will make those comments to amplify the points that I plan on raising in subsequent proceedings in this case. We heard the things today that we're supposed to hear in a case like this. We heard from the family. We heard from my client's family. My client's family has shown up to support him. We've heard, either through this pre-sentence investigation report or through the statements of the client's mother or the client, that my client has not led the easiest of lives, that my client has had problems in his life. Those are things the court should be able to take into consideration. The court should also be able to take into consideration the actual facts regarding the, for want of a better term, relationship between my client and the deceased. This court heard the evidence. This court heard that that relationship probably lasted somewhere between 1.5 and 2 seconds. That's according to the testimony of the state's accident reconstruction witness. This was not a situation of premeditation. This was not a situation where my client set out to kill. There are provisions in this statute that don't, under which you can be convicted, even under those circumstances. I noted for the record that a couple of the impact statements referred to my client's reckless behavior. The court will recall in the closing arguments, I admitted on behalf of my client that he acted recklessly and that he should have been convicted for that. Those are the things the court should be able to take into consideration. But in the wisdom of our legislature, the court cannot. The jury found what it found with respect to both the state of mind of my client and the course of employment status of the deceased, and this court has no choice. And I'm arguing again, and almost entirely for the right, that that kind of sentence structure does not allow this court to do what the Illinois Constitution has asked this court to do, and which in fact somewhat limits this court from doing, which is giving sentences that are out of proportion to the nature of the offense the character of the defendant, and the loss to the family. All of those things should be taken into consideration. And with all due respect, you will not do that. Because you are sworn to follow the law, and I fully trust that you will do that. My contention is the law does not allow you not to take that into consideration, not consistent with constitutional provisions. Thank you, Judge.
The family. There are no words to convey my condolences. I hope that you each will carry on Deputy Weist's evident from all of you, love of humor, of kindness, of sense of duty and integrity. And as Miss Ava stated, she sometimes feels an overwhelming pressure to live up to that image. It's not something to live up to. It's something to carry if you already have it. To Mr. Richardson's family, I feel great empathy for all of you for being in this situation. And thank you for supporting him and being there for him. Mr. Richardson engaged in actions that day that unfortunately led to Deputy's death. I understand his mother's statement about Mr. Richardson being bullied and picked on throughout his life, and then somehow that transfers to law enforcement picking on him. My experience has been that most law enforcement officers pick on, quote unquote, on persons that continually come to their attention for whatever reason. You all call it pick on, I call it maybe enforcing the law, or maybe living in a small community where unfortunately they're singled out. And when this trial started, quite frankly, I had no idea what the evidence was, nothing. Truly believe the state was going to have an issue proving their charge. Till I saw the video. And once I saw the video, and I heard the gunshots coming out of the car towards law enforcement chasing them, and I saw the split 1 to 2 second choice you made, Mr. Richardson. There was no question in my mind. Pursuant to 730 ILCS 5-5-8-1, subsection C, subsection 3 little i's, I am bound that the court shall sentence the defendant to a term of natural life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. There is obviously no mandatory supervised release period for count 1. Count 2 merges into count 1 as the state appropriately indicated. For the felon in possession of a firearm, class 2 felony, you are sentenced to 10 years concurrent in Illinois Department of Corrections. I believe that is a 1-year mandatory supervised release period. And for the aggravated fleeing and eluding conviction of 4, you will be sentenced to a concurrent 3 years in the Illinois Department of Corrections with a 6-year mandatory supervised release period. Mr. Richardson, I hope that you take this opportunity to do exactly as you stated in your letter, Mr. Richardson, or statement and allocution. That you take this opportunity to better yourself, to try to serve as an example to others. And you indicated you evidently have found God being incarcerated, and I truly hope you have. And I hope you follow those tenets, and that God has mercy on your soul. Mr. Richardson, you have the right to appeal the judgment of conviction. In order to do so, you must file a notice of appeal in the trial court within 30 days from the date upon which sentence is imposed, which is today, sir. Prior to taking an appeal, if you are seeking to challenge the correctness of the sentence I have imposed, or any aspect of the sentencing hearing, you must first file in the trial court within 30 days of the date upon which sentence is imposed, and today's date, a written motion asking to have the trial court reconsider the sentence imposed or reconsider any challenges to the sentencing hearing. You must set out in your written motion all issues or claims of error that you believe occurred in imposing the sentence or the sentencing hearing, and any issue or claim of error regarding the sentence imposed or any aspect of the sentencing hearing that is not raised in your written motion to reconsider will be deemed waived for purposes of an appeal. Failure to file the motion to reconsider within the 30-day period after judgment or sentence is imposed means that the appellate court would not accept your case for an appeal. Do you understand so far, Mr. Richardson?
Yes, ma'am.
If the motion is timely filed, sir, it would be set before me as a sentencing judge. If I granted your motion to reconsider, the sentence would be set aside and your matter would be reset for resentencing. If I deny your motion, then you will have 30 days from the date of the denial to file your notice of appeal. Failure to file your notice of appeal after a motion to reconsider sentencing hearing would also mean that the appellate court would not accept your case for an appeal. You understand all of that, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Kerman, thank you for your zealous representation. Ms. Brunson, thank you. Law enforcement, thank you for being here, and your family above all.